Thank you very much. So first of all, having a great time at Appian? Yes. Awesome. I think that it's a wonderful venue, and for me, it's been tremendous to be able to talk to various different customers, partners, etc. So having said that, in this session, we will focus on two specific areas: regulatory information management and how it is enabled with BPM. And then we're going to jump into a panel discussion related to GxP validation. We started talking about that in the previous session for whoever was here a few minutes ago, but we'll go and delve a little bit deeper. I'll actually ask a few more folks to join us on the stage at that point from Sanofi, Amgen, and we'll have an open discussion. I'll ask, put some questions in front of them, but also looking for the audience to participate. I think it should be a pretty lively discussion. But with that said, let's open first with the first 20 minutes or so with Davide Macchi from KPMG. Davide and I have known each other now for a few months, working through our European endeavors together. We're building a tremendous head of steam in Europe with working with various different companies out there. And the KPMG is developing their business in Europe as well. And they've done some great work with some customers. Davide will speak about that. And please give yourself a little bit of an introduction.
Okay, good afternoon. My name is Davide Macchi from KPMG. And as Evie was saying, we are developing BPM practice also in Europe. And we have quite few experience, great experience also in the pharma industry that we are going to share today with you. And I work for almost 10 years in KPMG, and in the last 4 years I work with business process automation tools. And I think it's a great journey till now, because we have seen how Agile is a business process management approach to business problems. So we are not just focusing on technology. We focus first on process, data, organization, and then we look which is the best technology for solving the major pain points. And we have seen that, especially in the pharma industry, BPM is a good key to success. So let's talk about a little bit about the regulatory affairs. So regulatory affairs for a pharma industry is one of the core business. And actually, it's about many things. It's about all the relationship with the health authorities. And you have to manage all the handoff between health authorities, all compliance regulations, updates, all deficiency letters that are coming to your pharma company. And you have to handle this. And you have to manage a lot of handoff between different functions of a pharma. Advocacy and intelligence is another major point in the regulatory affairs space, because you have to keep updated. I mean, in the pharma space, regulations are changing every day. You have to be very still. You have to be very fast. And actually, this is another important piece of the regulatory affairs. Then the products change, because every time you manage a change in your product, then you have to communicate that to the health authorities. And that's why the dossier submission. So as you can see by all these functions, the regulatory affairs is actually the core function of the pharma industry, because it involves all I would say, all the product, all the function, logistics, R&D and quality. And so you have to gather, collect, and manage a lot of information, a lot of data, and also there are a lot of processes around that. So there is also the product license tracking, and also you have to manage your strategy. So how you go to the market and what are the, let's say, timeline you have to manage. And so as I said, there is a tremendous amount of data, process, and also handoffs. And there is a tremendous amount of collaboration between people, but there is no one solution that can handle all of these. And so BPM, Business Process Management Automation Tool, could be one of the solutions. Major pain points for regulatory affairs, maybe some people in this room are familiar with this, disconnected data and processes. We are talking about island of information. So there are some systems that actually manage processes and data for regulatory affairs, but all of these are disconnected. There is no transparency, no visibility. So you never know at what status is your submission for a new pharma product. So you want to apply for a dossier submission, but you don't know because maybe you manage a piece of information on your document management system, another piece of information of your master data management system, another information on your SAP, but then you don't have the complete picture of that. Ineffective global communication, that's another pain point, because maybe you have a mutual recognition of your pharma product that actually spans different countries all around the world, and you have to connect with your local regulatory affairs function. And that's another pain point, because sometimes you communicate with them with email, some other time by phone, via WebEx, conference call, but there is no a unique repository of all this communication. And since we are working in a regulated space, this communication needs also to be with the dossier. So it's really important you manage also communication. Then accessing the key data. As I said before, as we said also in the previous session, in regulatory affairs there are tons of solutions that you use. Document management system, master data management system, ERP, Excel spreadsheet, email, and you don't have a unique place to manage all of this. And also, as you can imagine, all these systems are not very user-friendly. And also, you need to change them many times, and it's difficult to do that because sometimes you need to have an expertise just for that document management system in that country, maybe for Europe, for Germany, and then you have another document management system in the US, and then you have to work and make another project to actually build a change. So what's the journey about? And this is also some experience that we have in Europe with some pharma companies, is that life science organizations are trying to change their approach to regulatory affairs. Also because there is a very strong pressure from the health authorities all around the world. We started with EMA in Europe, but then it will be also in the US with FDA. So there is this big pressure to meet the timeline of submission for new pharma product. There is a complex regulation coming, and you have to manage from your internal point of view of your organization a complex environment. So you have to find a new way to address all these issues. And we have seen that the BPM approach is actually successful because we don't want to use BPM to replace the existing solution. There is no need to do that because a document management system is good. I mean, it's meant to do that piece of work. So it's better to start to orchestrate, to integrate, and leverage the value that actually you invest in those solutions. So for example, you can build a submission for and a tracking and monitoring system for submission of new medicinal products, but then you can build that on BPM as an integration layer, and then have, for example, an integration with document management system to manage content, or with your MDM, so the master data management system, and then have integration to manage your data. And in that way, you can start to orchestrate your process and actually build an application where you know exactly at what status of the process you are. And so with BPMA, you are addressing the pain point we have seen before. So you enable integration with the existing system, and I mean, We have done several integrations with many tools, not just with Appian, with BPM. And I can tell you after 10 years that with Appian, with the BPM solution, it's very easy to build an integration. If you want to build an integration to pull, for example, some data from the material master data, product master data from SAP, it's very easy. If you try to do that with a document management system or whatever, it's more difficult. But why? Because BPM and Appian as a solution is more focused actually on data rather than process. We talked about that yesterday. And data are actually key in the regulatory affairs. So you don't have just to manage the data and so the content of the dossier for the submission of a new pharma product, but also you have to manage all the data that you are going to submit to the health authorities. And that's also our data that are needed for the health authorities to approve your new medicinal. Then after you build all the management of this data, of this content, then you can build the integration with the other systems. So you can build the integration with a document management system, with a master data system, and then finally you build the process to track the status of collecting all this data. And this is the approach we follow in some companies in Europe, pharma companies in Europe, to build a RIM solution, and actually it works fine. Because this is a good way to start to think and start to change the approach to the regulatory affairs. And not just focus on process, but also data and content are really important. Lack of transparency and visibility are addressed with the BPM solution because then you have records that can show you the status of your submission, and that could be built in a very clear way. And also because a BPM solution is, we tend to say, is a tailor-made solution, you can build in the way that user wants to. So you can have also different view for different business functions, and that's also really important. Global communication, task assignment, newsfeed, and messages in BPM solution are really a good way to enable global communication between different functions in the regulatory affairs. Accessing key data, for example, if you think about Appian and the records, it's very easy to access the data. And so you can have in the record, you can have one record for each submission, and then if you click on that, you don't just navigate through data that you collect during the process with Appian, but you can also navigate data from your master data management system or your document management system. And so regulatory affairs could go there and actually collect all the information they need, maybe to present to the board to say, okay, this is the status of our submission. And now, if you don't have such a solution, you have to collect all this data from Excel spreadsheet, from document management system, from many sources, and you waste a lot of time to do so. And maybe these activities are low value-added activities, and you prefer to focus on more value-added activities. And then Appian, of course, is quite user-friendly, and also is mobile, so it's very easy to use. And also the need of change management is no longer needed because you can build those solutions and then roll out to the people in a few weeks. And then long timelines for change. If you use a BPM approach and you use a mixed agile and waterfall approach, you can have first result after a few weeks. You can show real prototypes of your solution after a few weeks and have a feedback, and then you can start to do playback and iteration and fine-tune your solution. So the RIM actually is something like this, and it's very, very big if you think about as a solution. It's not just one solution, so you will never find on the market a solution that could cover all of these. You could not find a solution that has embedded document management, registration management, management of correspondence, health authorities, requirement management, and so on. So actually, all the gray part of this slide actually is managed by many other solutions, a DMS, a master data management system, or even a RIM solution. But then with BPM, you can actually work on the blue. So you can have the process orchestration. You can build on top of that the submission cycle time and process report to know exactly where it stands your submission to the health authorities. You can build your submission portfolio management where you start to fulfill all the data that are needed to be sent to the health authorities, all the documents, and also you can manage all the end-off. Because since there are so many business functions involved in a RIM solution, you can manage end-off between different functions with a BPM solution, and there is no more need to use emails, to use WebEx, to use conference call to manage the iteration between different functions. And also with Appian, with the BPM solution, you can manage deadline, alerts, and these are the key part of a BPM solution, because without someone, a human that actually start to think about, okay, what's the status of my submission, what are the deadlines, actually now there will be the BPM solution that tracks all this deadline and will alert you, okay, you have to fulfill this paragraph of your dossier, or you have to provide that piece of information. Timeline setup, so you can build a timeline in your BPM solution for the dossier submission, and also you can manage escalation, exception, you have the workflow approvals, all the stuff that Appian does so well, and then you can have these embedded in your RIM solution. So these are some examples of use case that we are building on Appian for regulatory affairs. And you can see you can build almost everything in the life cycle of a submission for a medicinal product. So you can build the application setup. If you think when you start to set up an application for a new dossier, you start to enter all the basic information about what's the product, what are the countries involved, what kind of submission you are going to do, or maybe you set up all the key milestones, you start to provide the deadlines to your working team, and also you can start to push notification to the working team to ask, okay, please provide me that piece of information. And this could be all automated. No anymore need to send email or complete Word document templates or SharePoint or whatever. Then you can manage all the dossier fulfillment, and here we put couple of examples of use case. For example, you start to collect documents that are needed for a submission, and then push all of these documents to your document management system, or maybe also avoid that people start to have their own archive on their PC. And then you start to tell people, okay, if this document is needed for the submission, even if it's not approved, it's not official, you can start to upload in the process, and that will be a tremendous treasure for the company itself, because the information is there. It's like you are building your Wikipedia for regulatory affairs. Then submission and approval, you can have all the workflow to manage the approval of the submission of the dossier, but also all the management of the deficiency letter, because health authorities will come to you and say, okay, you submitted this dossier, but actually there are some troubles, some issues with this paragraph or that other paragraph. And then you can manage all these handoff between you, your organization, and the health authorities in a BPM solution. and at the end, tracking and reporting. I mean, we are talking about process, we are talking about data, and if you want to know the status, but also the data that are needed for your submission, you can have one view of your process with this solution, with Appian. And here are some some use case, some example of what you could build with Appian for a dossier submission. So you can have a task to manage the submission, so to fulfill all the master data needed for a new dossier. Then you can have all the approval and use tasks to do so. Then you have the reports where you can see what are my deadlines and what is my actual. So I can see, okay, I had to, for example, submit that paragraph that day, and then with BPM I can see what is the actual date of completion. And you can also track, so monitoring is really important because you will see, this for example is the module of the dossier fulfillment. You can see the progress with a progress bar and see what are the documents uploaded and what is your status of your submission. So this is actually some use case we built, but there are many, many others. Are there any questions? For example, we actually build integration with Documentum, that is a document management system, and with another system called Extido, that is for the submission of the dossier to the health authorities. So with Documentum, we actually manage all the integration about fulfill the dossier, the electronic dossier for the health authorities. So user upload documents with Appian, and then these documents are pushed to Documentum via integration. So there is no more need for user to work first on Excel spreadsheet to track the submission and then go to Documentum. They just do it in one interface with Appian. So they know exactly what to do at what time. They upload the documents that are needed for that submission, and these documents are pushed to Documentum. It's Extido, is a solution from Germany. It's quite common in the European market, and actually manage all the master data for the submission to the health authorities. And we integrate also with that because all the master data collected through Appian are then pushed to Extido. And so Extido is already, let's say, ready to submit all this data to the health authorities.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm going to ask Davide to go ahead and sit down with us. The regulatory consulting firm came to AWS. They did a mock FDA audit with them. Some of the outcome of that was indeed a white paper that prescribes what are they looking as far as traceability and requirements from documentation that AWS will have, that the companies like Appian that build solutions or have a platform need to have, and then what customers, so yourselves, need to have in place. It's a guide, and it does provide some insights. What we're doing at Appian is we're actually right now in the midst of having a similar consulting firm working with us to assess our own processes and procedures, give us that understanding of what are some things that we need to improve and have better from a documentation perspective, but also be able to prescribe to you guys what you need to have to support validation and GxP compliance on Appian when you build solutions that are on the platform. So we will have that available probably towards the middle of the summer and make sure that everybody is aware of that as well. We will guide you. I have several white papers on the topic of 21 CFR Part 11 compliance, GxP compliance, as well as our own SDLC process of what Appian does to maintain change control between the different releases of our product. But without further ado, let me turn it to the wonderful panel that we have here. So, Anand, please, a couple minutes.
All right. My name is Anand Ramasubramanian. I work for Amgen, one of the biotech companies based out of California. I've been supporting manufacturing for 3 years and the last 13 years last 10 years doing mostly drug safety and regulatory applications. All applications which I've done are either GMP or GCP compliant applications at this point.
Wonderful, thank you. Davide, we got your mic on a minute ago. Yes, Michael.
Hello, everyone. Michael Caloria at Sanofi. I've been working in IT my whole career, and the last 4 years focusing on BPM. Worked initially on a safety surveillance application, and the last couple of years working on in the clinical space, looking at the documents and the processes that are required before we can send a drug to a particular site for a trial.
Yep. And Neil Sanford, Enterprise Architect with Sanofi. Been working with Appian since 2010, 2011. Other BPM products before that as well. In the clinical environment, and so working on leveraging the clinical data in our other core systems and augmenting the functionality that those are missing with the Appian product.
Great, thank you. So I know that, for example, Sanofi, as far as Appian is concerned, has not actually implemented in the cloud yet. You're on-premise for most of what you're doing. Mm-hmm. Tell us a little bit about, what are the considerations? Why are you still on-premise? Are you looking to go in the cloud? What are some of the considerations you're going to evaluate when you are considering going to the cloud?
Yep, so the first reasons we were looking at on-premise is for the data sharing. So we're data sharing off of our core system. Some of them are Oracle-based, Documentum-based, SharePoint-based. So one reason we went in-house first is a lot easier to integrate into those different technologies since they're local. The other one is our security group following GxP regulations, and we don't have many other things in the cloud, and so they're gun-shy for us to be first.
But I could add to that, Neil. So, we started this journey in 2011, and it was clear at that point in time that the cloud was a no. And, that's why I kind of asked the question earlier. Perhaps it's changing, and I know at Sanofi we have a new CIO, which comes from not from the pharma industry, that's very open to the cloud.
Came from Coca-Cola, right?
Coke and,
Yeah.
yes. So the question, will he help drive that for us is a question.
Okay.
We don't know the answer yet.
It's some folks like that do come into pharma now from other industries that are actually challenging some of the status quo and some of the thinking. I mean, I know that, at Novartis it's the same thing. Had a quick discussion with the new CIO there, and it's the same. They're coming in and asking, well, what's the issue with cloud? It's good, and we need to have that discussion, and we need to have the discussion with our compliance folks. Yeah, sorry. So before we turn to Davide with some of your experiences, Anand, from your perspective, you guys have actually taken that leap of going into the cloud.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about the considerations there.
Amgen, we went into Appian in 2014, and we chose to go the Appian cloud. Amgen itself has a cloud on Amazon. Amgen cloud is there, but we chose to go with the Appian cloud, obviously for long-term sustenance of the platform as well. However, the question always comes in as you're brought up, the GxP compliance and so forth and so on. The way that our security organization helps us guide us through is enable that SOC compliance. I'm hoping everybody is aware of the SOC compliance service organization controls. It's a standard that was actually initially started off with the AICPA, the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants. It all started there with an SSAE 16 standard, and later on morphed into SOC 1 and SOC 2. So this actually gives 5, what do you call it, as trust service principles. The SOC compliance is based on trust service principles, which is primarily security, availability, process integrity, confidentiality, and privacy. So the SOC compliance actually enforces these 5 trust service principles. Mm-hmm. Now, the difference between, so we ensure that Appian is certified for SOC 2 compliance. That gives us a good sense that they have process controls to ensure that their system is secure. Is access, is logical security and physical security, plus what do you call it as only authorized persons can access. That is security. Availability is, it is available for us to use, basically meeting the business function. Right? process integrity, which means that they have processes in place where they're ensuring that the system is available on time, availability, everything else, as well as it is repeatable. Anything that they do installations and that, it is repeatable for them. That's process integrity. Confidentiality, anything that we say is confidential according to their policy. So we are ensuring that. And the last one is obviously privacy. If there are certain data elements that we say is private and it has to show, they have to show. So if their system is able to prove to us that they maintain the SOC 2 compliance, which they did, our security organization is okay with that. All right, that's your first step of their environment being SOC 2 compliant and showing the respective control for GxP compliance. The second part of it is our application we develop on the platform is GxP compliant. That's left to us completely. That is, how do we test it? Does it really meet the intended use? That's totally based on us. Depends on the standard principles of IQs, OQs, everything else. We ensure those documentation are correct. So this is how we achieve, we prove to our quality organization, yes, we are GxP compliant still.
Great, thank you. Davide, I'll let you have an opportunity to actually ask a question to some of the folks here. So from your perspective, you come at it from KPMG's perspective, you see what's going on. Let me utilize you to ask a good question here.
Yeah, actually.
Or make a comment, the same thing.
Yeah,
so,
no, but I have some questions. Because if you think about cloud, actually with a BPM solution, and before we talk about regulatory affairs, in those processes, there is a lot of collaboration, not just internal in your organization, but also with external people. I mean, many CROs, if you have to deal with clinical trial, for example, you have all the sites that are going to report you some data. So what's your perspective about that? I mean, what's your idea about use the cloud to actually expand the boundaries of your organization to these external collaborators?
I know in the clinical environment, we're doing our clinical data capture. That's now out in the cloud, so we're doing that work. But I think one thing is we put in one single Appian installation that we're sharing across several different divisions. So we have some departments doing like e-demand tracking. We have some departments doing some clinical study startup information. We have other groups that are doing their internal organization and CV monitoring. So I think with us going with the cloud is we have to get buy-in from several groups that they don't mind, that they trust to have that information over, in the cloud and not in-house. So I think that's one hurdle we have. It's not just do we want to put our particular applications, but does everybody else on our shared platform want to do it as well?
Yeah. Michael, any comments?
No, nothing more to add.
No
to
problem.
that. I think that's
Good. Open it up to some questions for the audience. I'm sure it's a hot topic, so I'm sure that people know, and if you're not thinking about it right now, you have a question, so good. Yes, please. So I'd love to hear from the audience, but I'll put my comment on it a little bit again. News becomes very scary. I mean, I spent, many years in legal, in the risk assessment, IP risk assessment group of Teva. And for us, having something like news would stay away from that, right? So I don't turn that off for me. I don't want people just posting stuff on everything. The key here is to make sure that you can control how that, maybe the term news is misleading when we actually build it and that tab, not that Appian is going to change how they call it, but we need to explain what that actually is, and that the ability to share information in that social environment is very business context and related to authority of people and permission. So not everybody sees the news, not everybody can post. But having said that, I'll turn it to the audience.
Yeah, if I could add to that. So, with the safety system that we built is for the safety department plus for the labeling department. So if it's determined to be a change to the label, it goes to that department. They were very concerned in the beginning about that because they didn't want, the safety people didn't want the labeling people to react and say, oh my God, somebody wants to change the label, because maybe it's not, you know, so we had to manage that, but that was an initial concern. So yeah, I think you have to definitely look at what you want to post there and who can see what, for sure. It's definitely an issue.
Right. Any other comments?
We use it for the same purpose at Amgen, exactly similar process where the pharmacovigilance information comes in and then integration goes into the labeling group. Initial concerns were there, but I don't think that now it's all much better.
Yeah.
Exactly
We
the
also
similar
have,
process we use.
We also have the learning curve to get people to go into and look at the news feed.
Right.
So a lot of our clinical apps push both an email out and a post into the news feed.
Yeah, I think that, you know, the learning there also is to understand that it's not only people posting to the news. There's the process, the automation part of it is actually very, very powerful as far as having the process itself post to news to inform us of what's going on. And, you know, we use Appian to run Appian, so we actually use it as a business tool for ourselves, and it's very helpful for me to actually have the processes fire up some stuff that makes me informed of, you know, basically it's about situational awareness of the business, whatever the business is, pharmacovigilance, clinical operations, but whatever it is, it has to be within the context, and it is also very strong and well segregated, right? So we don't have everybody in the company, and this is not the Yammer or Chatter, right? This is not, you know, hey, look at my new neat, nice green shoes. It's really very context-based and specific. And if you see sometimes people misbehaving, well, okay, fine, then correct it. I mean, then it's how we work with people to utilize the tool the right way. Okay, good. Yes, please.
We are scratching the surface on that. We are not really looking at an integration at this point to social media and social listening concepts of pharmacovigilance. Where we are just not planning to integrate at this point. Whatever feed, whatever information we get in would be a feed, either manual or other mechanisms, but not necessarily a direct integration with it. Obviously I think folks from Sanofi can really attest to it. The data that comes in from there needs to be curated properly before we can make any sense out of it, really. So there's a lot more work needs to be done. So we are not integrating at this point.
Right, and Sanofi has deployed Yammer, so we have Yammer, intercompany Yammer. But right, you get a mixture of, oh, here's some interesting articles,
Right.
Here's what's going on my project, and then my green shoes again.
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
you know, we have all those, right? So right now, we haven't been looking at to see if we want to push our automated notifications from our Appian apps to that platform yet.
Right.
Okay, Jerry, yes.
Yeah, I have a quick question. You know, you said that Appian right now is the SOX compliant. What is, on a high level, can you share what the missing component from SOX compliant to GxP compliant as far as the Appian? And then also one question for them is, you carry the load to work the last mile, and what's the learning or sharing you can do for us?
Yeah, sure.
So I'll take the first question, and Anand can probably take the next part. The gap, it's not a big gap, but it's mostly a gap of perception. It comes down to documentation processes, everything is in place, but you know, what I'm hearing from pharma customers so far is that the ability to actually go and do a physical audit of AWS, basically go in with a clipboard and show me where my server is, and I want to be able to go through my questionnaire and answer, is currently a challenge because AWS does not actually permit to do physical assessment, you know, in that regard. So we have to find a way to get beyond that barrier, to work with AWS, you know, and be able to find some trusted joint group that will be trusted by pharma, trusted by AWS. If it's Ernst & Young, who they currently use, or if it's somebody else, we need to be able to get beyond it, because at the end of the day, I'm pretty confident that AWS does have the appropriate physical security necessary beyond anything that anybody else, including pharma companies, could possibly put in place. Yet, with all due respect, pharma companies do provide the probably strongest capabilities from that perspective. I mean, many years ago, I've been through, you get the J&J, it looks like a nice little, I guess, all kinds of screens and everything, and everything, the control of your infrastructure is being done and managed very well. That was years ago. So today, I'm sure that you guys are even much more advanced than that. So I think the key is having that discussion and interaction. And one quick comment then from Anand to close the session.
Right. So you asked me for the challenges and stuff like that. Yes. So on the SOC compliance itself, yes, they say that this is what we do, this is how we control it. As a company, we need to audit them to ensure that, hey, they do what they say they will do, right? I mean, it's just not documentation. We have to have proof that they did it exactly what they said they will do. So that's one thing that we follow for sure. Our organization do take the option to audit. I want to very be clear here about option to audit. That means we may have certain things to say that we will audit Appian, who in turn will audit AWS. So our relationship is Appian, and we want to ensure that we can audit Appian at any point of time. And they show us that this is what they did and this is how they did. So that is what we'll do. But our organization have the choice to say, hey, based on this documentation, do we need to audit them this year? Or can we do it? So that kind of audit flexibility is built into the policies that we have. Okay? So that's a good thing to have so that you can choose. Some of them you don't have to, some of them you may have to do it twice a year or once. That's a decision by the company, not necessarily anything. On the GxP compliance, yes, it is document-centric. We saw several presentations which said application in 1 day, in 1 hour, maybe in 1 minute next time. But then from a GxP compliance, you know that's not going to happen. Let's just be very clear about it. However, I also want to say that before we engaged Appian in 2014 for the first time, even a 3-month rollout was a no-no in our environment. You're very 3-month rollout would be a really difficult thing. We did the application exactly what Sanofi did for pharmacovigilance as well. We rolled it out in 3 months. Gaurav was involved from Appian, and Ranjit is from Amgen as well. So it was less than 4 months we rolled out a GxP application. We had to invent a few creative ways to do the validation aspect, trying to speed up with the multiple sprints going simultaneously. So if you look at the Agile methodology, you don't see those sprints going simultaneously, but here we had to do it with a creative way of making multiple environments available for us. So these kind of things we learned on the way to achieve the speed, the velocity that we need. Okay.
Thank you very much, guys.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anand, thank you so much.